I'm just going to go over a few preliminary matters before we get started. This is Zoe Burgess, the City Clerk. If you allow me to permit once again and confirm that the council members and persons that are anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Council members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. As a reminder, you are able to unmute yourselves. I will give you a moment to do so. Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Loud and clear.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
I'm here.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Here.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Here.
Mayor Roger Manning. Mayor Roger Manning. Mayor Roger Manning.
Here.
Okay. And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Denise Malone.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
City Attorney Pam Booker.
Here.
City Manager Kenneth Casso.
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Brian Davis with Palm Beach County Planning Division.
Here.
Audrey Wolf with Palm Beach County Facilities Development and Operations Department.
Here.
Don Hearing, owner and president of Kotler Hearing. Don Hearing. You are able to unmute yourself?
Here.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Tara Dewey, Lewis Longman, and Walker.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Please note when the appropriate time comes to speak, the mayor will call for such during public comment, both in the beginning and the end of the meeting, as well as the public hearing section of the agenda. You may utilize the virtual hand feature if you wish to comment. Please note this meeting is being recorded, both voice and video. Please remember your mic may be live. I will mute any microphones that carry any feedback or interruptions. However, you have the ability to unmute yourselves. Mayor, we may now begin the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call to order the Westlake City Council meeting Monday, May 11th, 2020 at 6:34 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll, please?
Councilman O'Connor.
Present.
Councilwoman Crump.
Present.
Councilman Paul. Councilman Paul.
Present.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Present.
Mayor Manning.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'm going to do the Pledge of Allegiance for everyone this evening. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's move on. Do we have any additions, deletions, or modifications of the agenda this evening? Is everybody able to respond, Zoe?
Zoe, is emergency ordinance 2020-03 on?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Emergency ordinance 2020-03, is it on regular agenda?
It needs to be noted.
Mr. Mayor, we need to make sure that ordinance number 2020-03 is on for the agenda for consideration this evening.
Where in the agenda would we place that, Zoe?
Yep.
It should be under new business, Mayor.
Yeah, but with Okay, we'll just do it over. Doesn't matter when. Okay. So noted. Do we have any public comment on, oh, excuse me, we need to take a vote on that?
I will make a
Motion?
motion. I'll make a motion to modify this evening's agenda, adding ordinance 2020-03 for consideration under new business.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Long Robinson, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Roll call vote. Councilman O'Connor,
I agree.
Councilwoman Crump,
Yes.
Councilman Paul,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Okay, Zoe, do we have any public comment?
We do. We have one from Tara Dewey with Lewis, Longman, and Walker.
Good evening, everybody. This is my first
Good evening.
public comment virtually, so it's weird not being able to see you all on the same screen. But I'm going to keep my comments to your 3-minute limit, and I just wanted to excitedly let you know that I'm Tara Dewey from Lewis, Longman, and Walker, and I'm here on behalf of Minto PBLH LLC. And I wanted to let you know that as of tomorrow morning, we are going to submit to you the development agreement that we have talked about for some time for your and your staff's consideration. So it has been some time since we talked about it, and it was well before we were under the pandemic that has changed our lives probably forever. So I wanted to just take a few more minutes of my public comment to give you a primer on what it is we intend with this document and what we don't intend with this document. The first thing I want to say is that after we submit it, we're going to reach out to each one of you council folks to make sure that we understand your concerns, issues, questions, and that those get answered, because I think the most important thing here is that we have good communication. So as you may recall from the several presentations that I did about this prior to the pandemic hitting us all, Minto development orders were issued prior to the city incorporating. Minto can continue to develop pursuant to its existing development orders, and it doesn't need to do this development agreement. But we want to, because we have worked really hard with your staff to develop what we believe is a really great code that not only contemplates our development, but also really encapsulates the vision of the city. And it's our desire to move into that vision of the city and out of what we were living under with the county, which is a broader view of the region necessarily. So real quick, what does the development agreement do? The first thing that it does is bring us under your jurisdiction. It says the density and intensity that Minto has remaining will be developed pursuant to your land development code. The second thing that it does is incorporate the development order agreement conditions that are part of our current development order, except for those that have been superseded by your own code, that have been completed, or are contrary to law. What it doesn't do is change the number of units or the number of square feet that Minto is entitled to develop within the city. It does not increase our entitlement in that way at all. But what we did do, and I know this is coming up in the agenda, so I'm getting a little bit of a jump, but it's in the development agreement and I want to mention it, is we have added a condition and we have added a dedication that we don't otherwise have to do. And what we've done, and Mr. Herring in his comments will speak to this a little bit more in detail and give you a better sense, is we have decided to give the parcel that's currently known as PC2 to 6.3 acres of that land to the county and 2.7 acres of that land to the city for city facilities. So I know my 2 minutes are up.
Yeah, time.
Mayor?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we need the 3 minutes. We've gone well past. Thanks.
There are no further comments that I've received. Are there any from the audience? I'll give you a moment to raise your virtual hand if there are any.
Hey, Zoe, I thought you were going to call on me.
I did not receive a public comment card from you. If you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, if I could, if that'd be great. I'll stay within the 3 minutes.
You may go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, my name is Donaldson Hearing, and I'm speaking on behalf of Minto. Just wanted to follow up on a few exciting things that are happening out at Westlake. As the city manager and council is well aware that for a long time, we have been encouraging the development of a governmental services and institutional cluster right around the intersection in Town Center Parkway and Persimmon in the Grove Marketplace area. We're so excited to see the completion of the fire station site. That's something that's long been envisioned. Certainly as a planner, it makes me very excited to see how our plan is ultimately come together. We are pleased to tell you, Mr. Mayor, that on your agenda next month, you can expect to see a new governmental facility for the Palm Beach County Tax Collector, Ms. Ann Gannon's facility. It's a 4.7 acre site, about 23,000 square feet. Again, just another one of the efforts that we have been so excited about, trying to attract governmental services, because it really creates this complete community that we've always talked about. I know later on the agenda, there's some brief discussion about parcel C1 and parcel C2, which is located on the west side of Ilex Road, away just south of Town Center and east of the Grove Marketplace. That parcel was originally designated to be 6.3 acres. However, due to engineering constraints and drainage that needed to be provided for the fire station and other facilities, as well as when you adopted the comprehensive plan, we had a larger right-of-way section that was required for Ilex Way. That was to fulfill your commitment and desire to have multimodal pathways on both sides of all of our major roads, as well as bike lanes, bike facilities in those roads. It resulted in that parcel becoming a little bit smaller. It's approximately 4.3 acres as opposed to the 6.3 acres. And that was why the original development order provided flexibility in looking at the combined acreage of both parcel C4 and parcel C2. But as Tara said, continuing on our commitment.
You have 30 seconds.
Continuing on our commitment, we are proposing on parcel PC2 to provide 6.3 acres to Palm Beach County for governmental services and hopefully a western annex, as well as a 2.8 acre site which will be dedicated to the city of Westlake for a city hall facility. So just wanted to report our excitement and be more than happy to answer any questions.
Your time is up. Thank you. Mayor?
Okay. If there are no further comments, let's move on to the consent agenda, please. We have two items: approval of the financial statements for February 2020 and March 2020. Do we have any questions or comments on the financial statement? If not, could we have a motion, please?
Mayor, Council, the motion on this item should be individually.
Pardon me?
The motion should be individual for the February 2020 minutes and a second motion for the March 2020 minutes. Financial report.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial report for February 2020.
I will second that motion. Oh, sorry.
I will second that motion, Councilman O'Connor.
Zoe, we're waiting for you.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Crump. I have a second from Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Mayor Manning.
Approve.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes. Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Zoe, this is Vice Mayor Long Robinson. For the record, Councilman O'Connor intervened, and I went ahead. I didn't do that, so it's O'Connor.
Okay, noted. Councilwoman Crump made the motion. Councilman O'Connor seconded that motion. Motion passed.
Okay. The second item is the financial report for March 2020. Any discussion? If not, could we have a motion?
I will make the motion to approve the financial report for March 2020.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Long Robinson, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Mayor Manning.
Approve.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes. Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move on to the presentations. We have a presentation by Brian Davis, Principal Planner, Palm Beach County Planning Division. It's item A. Mr. Davis?
Mayor and council members, good evening. This is Pat Rutter. I'm the Assistant County Administrator. If I could very briefly just pass along a couple of words. First, let me introduce the folks who are here with you this evening. Audrey Wolf, our Facilities Development Operations Director. Ismael Colasso, the Deputy Director. Eric McClellan, who's our Strategic Planning Director for Facilities. Brian Davis, he's our Principal Planner in the Planning Division, and was the point person through the development of the Minto approval when it was in unincorporated Palm Beach County. And just a couple of points we wanted to share with you. There's a lot of history in the region that relates to this, what has now become the city of Westlake. Decades of planning went into it. This was one piece of the puzzle in the region, and it was contemplated as such. So a lot of the decisions and the back and forth, if you will, that went on were in that vein. Would offer to you that a lot of the impacts that will be felt by developments in the area, some are beginning and some are many, many years away, which is why we would offer that a lot of the decisions you're making now and will make in the near future will have an impact down the road, a significant impact. It's just one of those things that ask you to consider. The development approval certainly for this one occurred because there were community-wide benefits that were produced. Brian will get into that a little bit more, but there was probably almost call it years, over a year of discussion back and forth in producing the development that now stands as the city of Westlake. And then one last point, I just want to offer a little more from a personal perspective. I worked in the city of Weston from day one. I worked for an engineering firm that took over as the contract planners and engineers for the city. And we wrote the comp plan and zoning code just like you all have done from scratch. And I would tell you that resident demands changed through the course of time. And it was decisions made early on in Weston's inception before it became a town, before it became a municipality, that were instrumental in meeting citizen needs as it grew through the years, and probably to this day as well, even though I'm many years outside. But we've been in a similar situation, understand a lot of the challenges you're faced with, but I couldn't impress upon you enough that decisions made for the future, resident demands, residents' interest down the road many years from now, it's important to consider those today and plan for them. So I just want to give you a little bit of background. With that, I'll ask Brian to walk you through some of the history on the area.
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, members of the Town Council and the Mayor. My name is Brian Davis. As Patrick explained, I have sort of a long involvement in my time at the county. And my friends here at Facilities have asked us to provide you with sort of a background as to how this development approval came about and what were some of the considerations involved. Next slide. So to paint the picture really and to explore the backgrounds and themes, the county really had set out a long time ago, back in the early 70s, a generalized land use pattern, and it was representative of some existing platted subdivisions that were in the area, some going back as far as 1917 in Loxahatchee Grove. And not a lot really had happened. However, as we began to advance in the 1980s, there was an ever-increasing development pressure in the area. So what we now refer to as the Central Western communities, that area west of the water catchment area, south of North Lake and north of Southern Boulevard. And really, from a planning perspective, we began to look at what was the likelihood, or was it even feasible to actually look at these areas all developing, what were the infrastructure and needs for those? Because there was an identified lack of planning, and there really wasn't what was determined to have been needed. The county did support development in the area. It was determined to be somewhat feasible, but there was this inherent conflict that was out there. There were vast agricultural land tracts, of which the city of Westlake sits on a former citrus grove, but there were a lot of other larger scale ag operations or undeveloped parcels out there with these very small lots, 10, 20 acre rural, homesteads out there. And there was going to be this inevitable collision. And to that, into the early 90s, we had the acreage, those 1 acre pieces largely here northwest and south, that began to really start to fill in and put even more and more pressure, on the roadways, and really called out for the lack of infrastructure, schools and whatnot. And so you've got this conflict of what happens, because as that area began to look and try and mature, they recognized that it wasn't feasible to put a lot of their infrastructure needs in place, and a lot of it was going to be sort of pushed off to these larger ag tracts they were ever going to, convert to development. So next slide. And so the county saw this coming and eventually began a long-term planning exercise that we refer to as the sector plan. It was a tool that still in the statute is one that we used. And I'm not going to go into all the gory history, but I want to put up the guiding principles that are out there because you can kind of see what we were trying to do. And I reference this because ultimately the sector plan was a very long-term planning effort to look at how that area would develop, but it formed the basis of everything that came later, regardless of whatever the ultimate status of the sector plan was. And so it was in response to the development pressure from these larger agricultural tracts, and I'll put up a map and you can see that. But these principles largely looked at character. How did the county go about allowing and permitting responsible development to correct and address these infrastructure needs while not exacerbating or overly burdening the system beyond its ability to withstand those impacts? And then critically, it was supposed to be sustainable, both economically for the area, but fiscally from the government perspective as well. And so really what's in play is an effort to, how do we look at these ag tracts that, when they come in, when they seek a development approval, what do they do? So the next slide, please. And to that, we put the entire area up and we looked at what does it need. And so you can see those things, what is now Westlake sits in the middle. It was originally known as Calorie Judge Grove, which dated back to the mid-60s. But it was an attempt to comprehensively plan what the entire, larger area needed, not just if it developed, but it was trails, networks, concentrated nodes of commercial and limited, development that would help balance the land use patterns of the area and allow for some measure of residential development to occur to help sort of incentivize the developers coming in and making the necessary investments that were needed. The idea was to concentrate the development of these nodes. Largely, it was given at a density of what we in planning like to refer to as the number of persons per acre, 0.8 units per acre. As I said, this was adopted by the county commission. It was never determined to be in effect. The county ultimately withdrew it, but the critical importance of the sector plan going forward from 2007 on was that it served as the basis for future county recommendations. Now to turn our attention to what was the preliminary stages of Westlake itself. The first iteration, there's three, and if you're familiar with the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you'll somewhat understand how this works. There was a development of regional impact, and the original application under that was for 10,000 units, a density of 2.55 units per acre, over 2 million square feet of non-residential uses. It did propose a lot of regional uses, but it was sort of this all-in-one spot location. It also had some water benefits, but critically, and I can't emphasize this enough, there were extensive road network impacts. There were some estimates that topped out at over $500 million of roadway impacts to the county at large. And it was just, if you go back to the Goldilocks analogy, it was too much, it was too big, it was too high. There were benefits, but they really were not something that the county could stomach, and it was not something that, in the end, could be approved. It was denied, but I want to point out that there were benefits, but there was also a county alternate recommendation, not to give away the story, but really this becomes the basis of what you actually are sitting in Westlake now for that original. Next slide. Just a quick image. This was the conceptual plan that was adopted, or would have been adopted had it been approved. It had called for development virtually all over the whole thing with some retreat from the edges. This is largely the concept that kept sort of getting dusted off in the next two versions. So it does have some elements. Next slide, please. The DRI was denied in 2006. In 2008, the owner came back, and if you're familiar with Goldilocks, again, the first version was too hot. This one was bound to be too cold. It provided virtually no public benefit. It was a much lower density. It was consistent with the original density under the sector plan, but there were no benefits. There was nothing to address the road impacts. It was approved by the county because of a very bizarre statute that was in play, the agricultural enclave. Sometimes people see that. It was out there. It was a process by which the owner could seek a development order. It did not guarantee it, but it guaranteed them a much further ability to proceed in the process than virtually any other land use amendment or zoning approval could have gotten. But like I said, there were no benefits. That was approved only in land use. Next slide. This is the conceptual plan. This there were far fewer details about. There was no guarantee of an end master plan. This was just simply secure an approval for about 3,000 units of 0.8 units per acre. Very little was known about the civic sites other than some conceptual locations, those purple areas, and very low density sort of spread out over most of the site. Next slide, please. So now we come to the version that you all are much more familiar with. In 2013, there was a change in ownership. Minto Communities came to, by various means, to come out or to end up owning the parcel. They approached the county and said, we would like to amend our agricultural enclave. However, they came back and said, we would like to do it at 1.7 units per acre, about 6,500 dwelling units, and a relatively low amount of non-residential. The county looked at it, and again, we were coming back to this. It was not, we weren't seeing the benefits, but we were seeing the impacts. We went back, we looked, we considered, we planned, and we went back to the sector plan settlement at 1.2 units per acre, and then we asked for significant increases in some of the non-residential amounts because we felt that this was truly, as we often called it at the time, the hole in the donut. This was the most and best place for locating a lot of these types of uses in that area where they didn't otherwise exist in very few locations. But in addition to this, next slide, please, it wasn't just a let's approve a development order. There was also a critical component of public benefits. This had to balance larger county needs and values as had been determined. So there was a significant component of workforce housing, 10% of all units, to assure that you would have people who could actually work at these proposed businesses that could afford to be there. You had a more balanced community. There was considerable recreational amenities, trail systems. There was an attempt, again, to address water issues and water needs in the area. There was also open space. Open space is a very useful planning tool, but it also helps, the things like compatibility that we like to think about with land use. Those were critical. A point I'm going to come back and talk about a little bit more because that's really why we're here is to talk about the civic and government use allocations. There were over 200 acres of public parks, including a district park, considerable civic and non-residential or institutional uses over 200,000 square feet, and civic sites And I want to transition because one of the other things that I talked about earlier was impacts to the infrastructure. The roadway improvements were proposed for Seminole Pratt Whitney Road, 60th Street north of Persimmon. Next slide. And I want to kind of just give you a little background. There is a part of the county's original approval that is still in play, even though you all have the local, the authority of the jurisdiction over the zoning and land use, permitting and so forth. But the county does have control of roadway impacts and traffic currency. To that, there was a proportionate fair share agreement that was signed back in and approved back in October when the county approved this, October 2014. It remains in effect, and it addresses a developer, and it's an agreement between the county and the developer. It requires road construction roughly commensurate with development threshold. In other words, there were certain things out there that there was going to be a certain amount of non-residential use, that job creation, residential units that were going to come online. There were going to be impacts tied to that, and so the idea was that the roadway network would be built in place commensurate with those impacts. That's what that fair share agreement tries to do. And it requires a total of 11 contributions over time for about $54 million in 2014. Next slide. Among these are, efforts to widen Seminole Pratt Whitney, which have gone underway. Also to look at Persimmon and 60th Street, or sections from Persimmon to 60th Street North. The improvements are not necessarily, these are major roads, they're not your internal roads within the development itself, the side streets and local streets but the major county roads on our thoroughfare map. One thing I do want to point out is that there is an escalation clause in there that after October 2019, they have to be adjusted for effectively with whatever the market rate is. And then there is the first major contribution is at 873 dwelling units for building permits, about $8 million. And then finally, I want to conclude here on those public benefits. There were 3 civic sites that were to be for Palm Beach County. One is the fire station that you're aware of. And then also, actually, we should go straight to the next slide. Okay. Just to the north of the Grove Marketplace, that first sort of hot pink site, that is the fire rescue station site. There was a site just to the east of the Grove Marketplace. That was government pot C2, or the government services use. That was about 6.3 acres. And then finally, south of Seminole Ridge High School was a 50-acre county district park. That was part of the critical basis for the county's approval. Those were all of the various components out there, the recreation, the trails. This was the other things that would be needed out there in exchange for giving the development approval. So that concludes my presentation. With that, I will turn over to our facilities personnel and be available for any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I'm Audrey Wolf. I'm the Director of Facilities Development and Operations for the county. I want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to make the presentation tonight. Our objective for this workshop is to provide you with historical information and current day projections to assist the council in making fully informed decisions for the future. Let me begin by building upon the general background information that Brian provided. Historically, the county has had very little real estate ownership in this area of the county. Until the late 1990s and through the early 2000s, lots in the acreage were only sporadically developed as single-family homes, nurseries, and some limited institutional uses. Demand for the county services was relatively low, and there was the ability to provide what was needed from one of the regional facilities or the service center in Royal Palm Beach. There was no anticipated development or growth to the scale of this city necessitating any significant holdings of land resources for public facility delivery. By the time the economy peaked and housing development surged in the early 2000s, little property was left for assemblage or otherwise available to place other facilities. A good example of this is the Acreage Branch Library on Orange Boulevard, where the county and ITID collaborated on reciprocal land leases in 2010 to accomplish the construction of the ITID, to accomplish the construction on ITID land ownership and an ITID recreational facility on county ownership for optimal placements of these respective facilities. At one point in time, the county and Callery Judge Groves had an agreement to co-locate the library, a fire station, and a PBSO substation on 12 acres of land on the west side of Seminole Pratt Road. But that agreement was terminated when the initial development approval for the 3788 acre property, now the city, was not advanced. So when the Minto application was made in the last decade, the library had already had a home, but fire rescue and PBSO did not. And with the density and scale of the proposed development, the county knew that additional demand for services was going to naturally follow. For all of these reasons, FDO critically analyzed the master plan and development order, including working hard hand in hand with Minto's representatives at the time to negotiate the placement, size, access, and other details of the public civic pod to benefit the entire Central Western communities for years to come. So that is how the master plan, as we know it today, and is shown here, came to be. The items highlighted in yellow are material to what I want to talk about. The 3 public civic pods, negotiated and acquired by the county, C1, C2, and C4, their location, size, shape, boundaries, permissible points of access are all geographically shown on this binding plan. The other public civic pod, C3, is a commitment to the school district, so I'm not going to be speaking in any detail about that property. Importantly, the county's zoning code stipulates that 2% of the gross land area may be required to be dedicated to Palm Beach County for public purposes. That computes to upward of 75.77 acres in this case. However, the master plan shows and expressly states that only 72.7 acres, or 3 acres less than the maximum, is committed to public dedication, and that includes the land committed for the school district at Pod C3. We made a very concerted effort not to require any more land than we reasonably thought was necessary to meet our public facility needs in the future, and being mindful of the impact on the tax base. So when we hear about exactions and land banking, we are obviously disappointed and couldn't disagree more. But I want to speak about the 3 pods that we're negotiating, required by the county, and that are in the development order as we know it today. To start, let's look at the 4.4 pod, the 4.4 acre C1 pod. We're all perhaps most familiar with this site more than the others on account of the recent construction of Fire Station 22, which I think we're all very proud of. The siting of this station was deliberate in that it affords superior access in all directions while being centrally located to the larger service area. The original intent was to orient the building to face Seminole Pratt Whitney Road with emergency egress directly onto that road. Ultimately, however, we agreed to a design change at the request of Minto, and upon fire rescue concluding that to do so would not compromise operations and their response. This slide gives us a perspective of the entire site, which is actually more than just Fire Station 22 alone. The site is 4.4 acres total, and that's what was approved by the county. The plat approved by the council is at the top right and reaffirmed that acreage and configuration. And in the image at the bottom, it shows the area of site in yellow to the east of Fire Station 22 that is available for future development. It's approximately 1.7 acres. The graphic on this slide dates to 2013 and was prepared by Minto's planning consultant to verify the ability of the County Rescue Fire Station to fit on the site, given its relatively limited depth and linear configuration. So we knew all along going into this that there would be more on this site than just the fire station. We still don't have certainty for its future use, but based on the need for the region, its size, shape, and location, access point remaining on the master plan to support its development, as well as regulatory reasons and practical reasons, one concept is to improve it as a fueling station for governmental center use only. FDO manages a network of fueling stations throughout the county, and each is a tremendous community asset in support of both routine daily operations and especially in post-disaster response capabilities. The land area itself is essentially too small to accommodate any other user program, and that would consist of building and related parking and other site improvements. Fueling Fueling facilities also have to be co-located or in close proximity to PBSO substations. It's a siting requirement of that agency and the county. Much of their emergency service being auto-dependent, access to fuel is a necessity for being mission ready. So in this instance, if the balance of POD C1 were to support a fueling facility, it would essentially free up land area on C2 for the substation and our other governmental programming and development. All of the images on this slide are of our fueling stations in the Vista Center complex between Okeechobee Boulevard, Jog Road, and Florida's Turnpike. As you can see, it's basically just a concrete pad with small canopy over the top of a small number of dispensers. There's no convenience store or traffic generation because it's limited to government fleet only. That is what also makes it a good immediate neighbor to a fire station, which is equally important consideration for that land area. Speaking of good neighbors, you can also see on the image to the right that this particular station is right across the street from a residential community in the Vista Center complex, and in fact shares a four-way intersection with that community. We've had no complaints on light, traffic, or aesthetics. Moving on to POD C2, this image is again an excerpt from the standing master plan. For orientation and context, the hatched area to the left or west of POD C2 is the Grove Market Shopping Center. POD C2 is adjacent to POD C1 to the southeast and is 6.3 acres in size. The deadline for its conveyance to the county, per the conditions of the development order, based on some legislative extensions to date, is now November 25th of this year, notwithstanding any further time extensions that Minto might avail itself of. Configuration of this land was much more heavily negotiated with Minto than any of the other civic pods. And with this next slide, I will demonstrate that. These excerpts are taken from written correspondence submitted by Minto during the review of the Minto West zoning application. In the upper box, you can see where we were concerned with a wedge or triangular configuration of the property due to the diminished utility of the land area in constrained or awkward configuration. As you can imagine, it would be hard to cram a usable building footprint or even vehicular use into a tight corner. The comment was resolved through an improved configuration, although still irregularly shaped, that is now reflected on the improved master plan of 6.3 acres. Further, and because of the common knowledge that POD C1 was large enough to support more than just a fire station, FDO saw the benefit of the adjacent land areas being combined into a single pod. The north boundary of POD C2 was ultimately established to include a physical connection to POD C1 at a width of approximately 80 feet. In this manner, there would be sufficient land area for vehicular and pedestrian passage and utility connections between the property, and a far greater value and efficiency for government programming and development. The final response in the box at the bottom even referenced the conceptual plans such that we saw for the fire station and provides a good transition into the next slide. This graphic, like the one earlier for POD C1, was also prepared by Minto's planning consultant to verify the feasibility to support upwards of 50,000 square feet of building area and associated parking on the site. That amount of square footage is representative of what the county yields from 6 acres, provides flexibility to accommodate PBSO, in addition to host a number of other potential county programs and users for which the county is responsible for providing facilities. This is not a construction level drawing by any means, and it only shows the reasonable ability to physically fit 50,000 square feet of buildings and improvements on the property. As I mentioned earlier, the site remains to be conveyed to the county by Minto. The slide depicts materials submitted to FDO by Minto last year in satisfaction of the DO obligation for conveyance to the county. You'll notice that the configuration does not match that was on this master plan. As a result, not only is the acreage less than the 6.3 acres required, but there's also no longer a physical connection to POD C1. The image on the right is that same configuration on a recorded plat that was presented to and approved by this council. So quite obviously, FDO was surprised to have received this from Minto without any disclosure or comment prior coordination. What we subsequently discovered through our own review of aerial photography was that There's an existing water management tract having been expanded to the extent that it now encroaches into that land area. That same area is now reflected on the property appraiser's office map as having been conveyed to Seminole Improvement District in June of last year. Since FDO's comments and findings were issued to Minto in writing last year, there still hasn't been any response in the form of a resubmission or anything by Minto specifically on the configuration. While Mr. Castle has recently shared the possibility of a configuration that could restore the lost connection between the properties, that alone would not resolve the acreage deficiency and the diminished utility to accomplish the further government service programming that we require. So at this time, we're left with the question about what the fate of this required conveyance may be and why the county is being asked to accept something different and less than what was negotiated as a condition. With that as a background, it creates a national transition to Pod C4. This 50-acre site on the west side of Seminole Pratt Road, just south of the high school. What is not disputed is that the county's vision was to eventually improve the property, at least in large part, as a district park for the region. The concurrency reservation assigned to the property for park use is across the entire acreage, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. For now, let's suffice to say that this land area 2 was conveyed by Minto to Seminole Improvement District. With no different than Pod C1 and C2, the conditions of approval expressly state that this property was to be conveyed to Palm Beach County. The conditions are not self-executing, and Minto has not petitioned this council to make any change. The county's written objections to any other conveyance without full coordination with the county were issued to Minto before the conveyance was executed. Hopefully that explains why we have concerns about where this is going. We don't have a crystal ball, but we do try to use our institutional knowledge of trends and facility experiences that we've learned elsewhere in the county to forecast what the future. What that tells us here is that there's an emerging need for a substation to house PBSO 15 somewhere in the district, be it in Westlake, Waxahachie, or elsewhere in the service area. Certainly, Pod C2 presents an opportunity to have that substation within the boundaries of Westlake, but if an accommodation for another county need has to be sacrificed, the reality is that the substation could be located outside of the city jurisdiction because it has the least restrictive geographic requirements and the most restrictive requirements in terms of co-location because of security and the need for the adjacent fueling. Our Youth Services Department is also increasingly growing, taking on new programs at the community level, but has little to no physical presence in this particular area of the county. So we could see them coming into demand for some office space in the future. Our next collection of users is what we consider to be a midterm outlook of users for those needing facilities in this area. Among those are the property appraiser and the supervisor of elections, both of which operate at satellite centers across the county, as you'll see in a bit. Other midterm users may be a District 6 Commission Office, PZ&B Building Division, Florida Health to operate some more community-based locations for their environmental health and regulatory functions, and Fire Rescue to expand decentralized training and public service programs. Although a lesser likelihood and potentially only in the long term, there's a handful of other users and operations that are increasingly decentralizing from their primary service location. Those would include the Community Service Department, the Cooperative Extension, and Palmtran, who operate some satellite offices, especially for dispatching, sales affairs, and other local services. As we need to be mindful of and plan for all these uses where we commit today, we really need to be mindful of these because we really inevitably have an unpredictable future. Hence, the professional focus on a versatile site when given the site locations so that when an opportunity arises for a growing need, we have the land available to accommodate it. That concept brings me back to the 50-acre Pod C4, which you'll recall is immediately south of Seminole Ridge High School. The images on this slide are of a co-located PBSO substation, high school, and community park in the West Boynton area. This arrangement has been tremendously successful for all three public agencies and a big hit with the community residents as well. We thought there may be a potential for a similar productive arrangement in this location with the high school existing and immediately adjacent to the acreage adequate to support both the district park, being about 25 acres or more, and a PBSO substation with a co-located fueling facility. The 50-acre park concurrency reservation for that acreage was thought to be ample to cover any equivalency for any co-located uses, no different than the equivalency performed by Minto in support of the international soccer facility approval. This is common practice supported by established procedure. Unfortunately, however, this approach is no longer even an opportunity. Minto has conveyed the property to Seminole Improvement District, which not only isn't responsible for supporting county facilities, but I understand has already invested in professional design for the entire property being committed to park use. There are also now regulatory conflicts. The city has applied an open space and recreation future land use assignment to the entire 50 acres, which would prohibit the PBSO substation and fueling facility and allow only conservation and recreation uses on the land. Under county regulations, which is what we thought at the time, the public designation on the master plan alone would have afforded the flexibility for a host of public facility options, including every single facility or user that I've talked about tonight. Had we been aware of the planning and policy implications being put forth at the time, we certainly would have been telling you this story before tonight. But we're not, and we're here today to tell you this story. And because of all of that that has occurred on the park site, we could be constrained by only having the 10.7 acres remaining amongst PUD C1 and C2 to rely on in the future without any contingency that was inherently built into the 50-acre C4 PUD. So you may ask what to expect out of county development. The next few slides provide you with a representative look at what actual county facility development formats look like. This is the county's Midwestern Service Center, Royal Palm Beach, to the southwest of Okeechobee Boulevard and Royal Palm Beach Boulevard. The 22,000 square foot building is internally divided into suites to support multiple agencies, including the tax collector, clerk and comptroller, PBSO, and property appraiser. This particular facility was constructed in 2001. The next one is the civic pod of the Villages of Oreo community in western Delray Beach. Atlantic Avenue is to the south, Florida Turnpike is about a mile to the west. As indicated on the screen, this is a 2-tenant building housing PBSO District 4 substation and a service center of the property appraiser immediately adjacent. So by now you're probably getting an idea that co-location has been a successful strategy for the county. And finally, here is an example of more recent construction. In this case, it's a 17,000 square foot single-story building supporting the Belglade branch library that also incorporates a city-operated multi-use space, as we know as the Civic Center. So just by looking at these images and the audience being most familiar with Fire Rescue 22, I think you'll agree that the county puts a lot of attention into aesthetics, detail, and functionality in our capital construction plans for new facilities, and Westlake will be no different. I hope that Mr. Carter would agree that we openly provided opportunity for comment as plans and designs for Station 22 were being prepared. No matter if it's architectural or landscaping or anything else that might rise as a concern, we do everything within reason and that is publicly responsible to try to be accommodating while fulfilling our public service mission. So to summarize and conclude, the master plan conditions of approval and the DO we have today was mutually agreeable to Minto and the county. It remains in line with the county's forecast of needs into the future and the county's opinion, and in the county's opinion, none of which has been changed, none of which has been subject to any change condition or circumstances that would make a change necessary to that plan. If anything, more recent decisions and actions have placed the county at an unforeseen, unexpected, and unplanned disadvantage. Due to the number of unknowns in the long term relative to our needs, as well as the unknown development patterns, the county needs to preserve flexibility in development capability and not erode land available for county public facilities. This includes not being able to support a reduction in acreage or a loss of physical development potential or making our land available for co-located city functions. While we remain the named recipient of those pods, we are not opposed to foregoing the 50-acre pod C4 if that's the council's preference and decision, so long as the council realizes that the strain that puts on the remaining 7.5 acres of developable land that needs to be delivered to the county for this city, as well as for the region into the future. Our objective for this workshop was to provide you with historical information to assist the council in making fully informed decisions. I hope to have clearly demonstrated the extensive amount of coordination and thought and planning behind the public civic pods of this development order and master plan on behalf of what is now the city, but also all the residents of the Midwestern communities. I would like to say that we were very surprised by the discussion and the announcement of a proposed civic site dedication. I am also tentatively very excited about the possibilities that a civic site that is in a more regular configuration of the size that we need could bring. But I'm hoping as we move forward, if you decide that we're moving forward with a different site, that you'll demand increased communication between all of the parties, the city, Minto, and the county, so that we can properly execute this. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
This is Vice Mayor Long Robinson. I have a question. First of all, thank you, County, for the thorough presentation. Also, thank you, Attorney Dewey, for clarifying what would be allocated to the county prior to their presentation. Question from the county, it sounds like there was a huge communication issue. Moving forward, and this is probably for Mr. Castle, moving forward, Mr. Castle, I think it would be wise for us to increase that level of communication between county, Minto, as well as the city, if possible. I think had communication been involved in this prior to, we would have been able to, we wouldn't have been here today. And so if we could make sure we are increasing that level of communication, especially with the announcement Ms. Dewey made. So it seems like as though Minto was comparable and amenable. I think we could have saved a lot of time this evening.
I will work on facilitating additional communication between the developer and the county.
I just had a quick question for Ms. Wolf. This is Councilman O'Connor. Under possible future facilities, and a medium probability, you had property appraisers as one of the options there. I'm just curious, with the new tax collector's office going in, does that lessen the burden, so to speak, on some of these future facilities that may need to occupy that acreage?
Yes, I think cumulatively it would have, but I think because we had lost the acreage, that we ended up in the same position that we started with, in being able to just barely accommodate, with the flexibility we need, the potential menu of users. Certainly the tax collector is one of the harder ones to cite, just because of the impact of that facility. But in terms of square footage and acreage and all of that kind of stuff, it does lessen it a little bit, but we are out the acreage that would have ended up in the park. So I think it's kind of a neutral.
Understood. Also, Palm Beach County Fire Rescue was also listed on that list. You really think that with Station 22, brand new and beautiful, being there, we might need additional resources for Palm Beach County Fire?
Interestingly enough, just recently in the last 6 to 8 months, Fire Rescue has come forward and indicated that they are exploring the opportunities for regional training facilities and for fire safety facilities. So this wouldn't be additional response units necessarily. It would be more to support all of the stations in the region with training and with the residents in terms of fire service support. And we are actively looking at 2 other locations in Palm Beach County for these facilities as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for clarifying that. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Great.
Do we have any further questions? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Mayor.
Okay. Okay. We have any further questions?
I do not see any further questions on the list.
I'd like to thank the staff from Palm Beach County for their presentation. And with that, we're going to move forward. And Madam Clerk, would you read into the record the ordinance up next in the public hearing, 2020-03?
Moving on to public hearing, ordinance 2020-03, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, amending its comprehensive plan to adopt by reference an updated 10-year water supply facilities work plan as required by 163.3177 Florida statutes, providing for the adoption of amendments to the city's comprehensive plan to implement the updated water supply facilities work plan, providing for adoption of updated policies within the comprehensive plan infrastructure elements, providing for transmittal to the State Land Planning Agency, Department of Economic Opportunity, providing the repeal of laws in conflict, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment? They may do so at this time. Please state your name and address for the record.
I see no comments, Mayor.
Okay, we have this is our second reading on this item. Do we have anyone on staff that wishes to speak about this?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Manning, Vice Mayor Long Robinson, and council members. This is Denise Malone with NZ Consultants. I will be making the presentation this evening. I will be brief as this is the second reading or adoption for the Water Supply Facilities Work Plan update. Make sure my slides are going forward. Zoe, it appears as if my slide is not moving forward. Suggestions? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Just let me know when you want me to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. The Water Supply Facilities Work Plan is a result of legislation put forward in Chapter 163-3167, which requires all local governments to provide for projected water use and the delivery, projected water use demand and the delivery of water for at least a 10-year period of time. The city's first water supply plan was adopted in 2018 with its associated comprehensive plan policies. In addition, the state statute indicates that within 18 months of the Lower East, in our case, the Lower East Coast Regional Water Supply Plan update being done, the water supply plan was to be updated. The Lower East Coast Regional Water Supply Plan was updated in November of 2019. Henceforth, our update now of our of the City of Lake Worth's, the City of Westlake's water supply plan being adopted this month in May of 2020. Next. The city obtains its water from the Seminole Improvement District, and that in turn gets water supplied by Palm Beach County. There is a local agreement that allows up to 5 million gallons per day, and that is over the 30-year period of time. The city's water supply plan, as drafted before you tonight, is consistent with the Palm Beach County water supply plan. In fact, it did take its population projections and looked at those and is able to accommodate the demand for the 10-year planning horizon to the year of 2030. In addition, the water supply plan is consistent with the Lower East Coast Regional Water Supply Plan. Both the county and South Florida Water Management District were coordinated with through the effort of updating Westlake's water supply plan. Next. The level of service for potable water in the city of Westlake is 110 gallons per capita per day, which would yield a demand for the long-range planning horizon at 2030 to be 1.06 million gallons per day. Taking into account not only residential, but also non-residential demand, the total in the year 2030 is less than the 2.2 million gallons per day that is allowed in the agreement with Seminole Improvement District and Palm Beach County in delivering that water, which again, the agreement allows up to 5 million gallons per day of bulk water from the county. And therefore, the city's water supply is adequate to meet the projected demands over the 10-year planning horizon to the year 2030. In addition, within the water supply plan, there are water conservation strategies that are included. In addition to the capital improvement schedule, as well as maps are also included. These are elements of the supply plan as indicated and required by state statute. In addition, the comprehensive plan infrastructure element reflects water supply plan policies. Those are the ones that are being updated in association with this amendment, and that is to reflect the water supply plan dates that are included. Next. The transmittal of the public hearing was held back on March 9th. Since then, the report was provided to the State Department of Economic Opportunity as well as the review agencies. We didn't receive any comments, which means that we didn't have any objections or required changes to make with the document. Therefore, no changes have been made between the March 9th transmittal hearing and the adoption hearing of today. Staff does recommend approval of Ordinance 2020-03 to adopt the Water Supply Facilities Work Plan, as well as the associated comprehensive plan amendment, and the infrastructure element. Next, with that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We have any questions? Zoe?
I see no questions.
No questions. Okay, so there's no questions. Okay, so I guess we have to reread the ordinance.
Ordinance 2020-03 for second reading. An ordinance of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, amending its comprehensive plan to adopt by reference an updated 10-year water supply facilities work plan as required by 163.3177 Florida statutes, providing for the adoption of amendments to the city's comprehensive plan to implement the updated water supply facilities work plan, providing for adoption of updated policies within the comprehensive plan infrastructure element, providing for transmittal to the State Land Planning Agency, Department of Economic Opportunity, providing the repeal of laws in conflict, providing for severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-3.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Councilman Paul, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Mayor Roger Manning.
Approve, please.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Yes.
Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Yes.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, ordinance 2020-05, Education and Youth Advisory Board. This is our first reading.
First reading of ordinance 2020-05, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, creating an Education and Youth Advisory Board, establishing the purpose and setting forth the duties of board members, to establish criteria for the board composition and reappointment, providing for conflicts of cause, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Mayor, if I could just speak on this right before we vote, especially for the new council members coming aboard. Council, I really strongly hope we put this ordinance in place, especially with what we see going on now with COVID-19 and young people going digital learning, virtual learning. It would be good if we could have representatives from our city who can be a part of conversations that are happening in the county at the school district level, so that we can make sure the children living in Westlake are able to continue with their education, and so that we can make sure that we are assisting in whatever way possible.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Mayor, please repeat yourself.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment? May do so at this time. Please state your name and address for the record.
I see no hands for comment.
Do we have any staff member speaking on this?
Katrina, I have a quick question for you regarding
Sure.
selection of the members. How would you like to go about selecting them? I know there's 3 and then 1 alternate.
So in the ordinance, Attorney Booker did a dynamic job. They would have to apply for the board, of course, contingent of hopefully we get enough members to apply, residents to apply, but they would apply for this to sit on the advisory board. And there are certain stipulations in the ordinance that identifies what they need. I believe it is in section 4 of 2020-4. And also if you refer to section 3 as well.
Okay. I see that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we have no further comments or questions, do we have a motion, please?
I will make a motion that we move forward with the adoption and going into the first reading, of the Education and Youth Advisory Board.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I have a second again?
I second.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson, seconded by Councilman Patrick Paul. Mayor Roger Manning,
Approve.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson,
Yes.
Councilman John Paul O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kara Crump,
Yes.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item C, ordinance 2020-06, Westlake Civil Rights Ordinance Act. This is a first reading also.
First reading of ordinance 2020-06, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, to be entitled Westlake Civil Rights Ordinance Act, providing for non-discrimination within the city and all other activities promoted or sponsored by the city Westlake, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Mayor and council, this is another ordinance that I brought to council in hopes that it could help in regards to the inclusiveness of what we're trying to create and establish in Westlake. We also have a member of the Palm Beach County Human Rights Council on the call this evening, and I believe she is going to speak for a few seconds in regards to this. Hopefully that is okay with you, Mayor.
It's okay, sure.
Tamara Sager, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here, Vice Mayor. Thank you. Thank you. I will keep it very quick. First, thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, council members, and city staff. As the Vice Mayor had mentioned, the ordinance is really about inclusiveness. And a little background, I'm here on behalf of the Palm Beach County Human Rights Council, which is Florida's oldest nonpartisan organization dedicated really to ending discrimination and promoting equality. Several years ago, the group launched a campaign called Palm Beach County, You're Welcome. And it's really an effort to encourage local municipalities to enact LGBTQ inclusive ordinances. Many of Westlake's neighboring municipalities have enacted such ordinances, such as Wellington, Lake Worth, Boynton Beach, Boca, Delray, West Palm, and more. And it's certainly our position that these ordinances are a win-win. They cost the city of Westlake nothing. The ordinances rely on existing remedies, and they place the city of Westlake in a stronger position to attract new residents and businesses, and they're really win-win for everyone. The proposed ordinance really will educate Westlake residents of their civil rights and responsibilities. So we thank you for recognizing the value of such an ordinance, and we believe that the city of Westlake would be the first municipality in Florida to enact a civil rights ordinance remotely. So thank you for considering it. It's a great way to put Westlake on the map.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in the public that would like to comment?
I see no other hands.
Okay. If there are no other comments, we could have the reading again, and then we can entertain a motion.
First reading of ordinance 2020-06, an ordinance of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, to be entitled Westlake Civil Rights Ordinance Act, providing for non-discrimination within the city and all other activities promoted or sponsored by the city Westlake, providing for codification, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Council, sorry. So sorry.
That's okay. No, go ahead. We got to get used to the Zoom thing.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Councilman. I don't think you've done one this evening. Go ahead.
I will make a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-06 for the Westlake Civil Rights Ordinance Act.
Thank you. I second.
I was waiting for that one.
I have a motion by Councilman John Paul O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson. Mayor Roger Manning?
Agreed.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson?
Yes.
Councilman John Paul O'Connor?
Absolutely.
Councilwoman Kara Crump?
Yes.
Councilman Patrick Paul?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, council, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to D, Resolution 2020-08, approving the final plat for Persimmon Boulevard East Plat 3.
This is a resolution 2020-08, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Persimmon Boulevard East, Plat 3, being in part a replat of Open Space Tract Number 3. Persimmon Boulevard East, Plat 2, Plat Book 128, pages 16 through 19, inclusive public records of Palm Beach, Florida, and being a portion of Section 7, Township 43, South Range 41, East City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, providing an effective date and providing for
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment? May you do so at this time. Please state your name and the address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, Donaldson hearing here on behalf of Minto. This is a continued plat extension of the public roadway network. This is one of those roadways that Mr. Davis was speaking about earlier that we continue to implement on a phase-by-phase basis. I think we're ahead of schedule in developing it. So this is extending Persimmon Boulevard, which will ultimately be a county thoroughfare, further to the east, ultimately connects all the way out to State Road 7. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, but this is just the technical plat that's before you to facilitate the further road construction network.
Do we have anyone from staff who'd like to comment on this? Excuse me. Is there anyone from staff that wants to comment on this? Zoe?
I see no hands.
Okay. Then we will move on with reading the ordinance again. Then.
Resolution 2020-08, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Persimmon Boulevard, East Plat 3, being in part a replat of Open Space Tract Number 3. Persimmon Boulevard East, Plat 2, Plat Book 128, pages 16 through 19, inclusive public records of Palm Beach, Florida, being a portion of Section 7, Township 43 South, Range 41 East, City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, providing an effective date and providing for recordation.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? If not, could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-08, approving the final plat for Persimmon Boulevard East, Plat 3.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Councilwoman Crump, seconded by Councilman O'Connor. Mayor Manning.
Approved.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
I'm sorry. Just going over this. There were some questions about that. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Move on to item E, Resolution 2020-09, approving the final plat for Crestwind Palm Beach, Phase 2, Pod P.
Resolution 2020-09, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Crestwind Palm Beach Phase 2, Pod P, being described as a portion of land described by Mets and Bounds as a portion of Section 6, Township 43 South, Range 41 East, and Sections 1 and 12, Township 43 South, Range 40 East, City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, providing for recordation, providing for an effective date.
Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on this item? Please state your name and address for the record.
Just a quick presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Zoe, if you could give me control, I'll walk us through that.
Just a moment, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. For the record, Donaldson Hearing here tonight on behalf of Coulter Homes in Crestwood, Palm Beach. We're here to present to you the second plat within Pod P1 as designated on the master plan. I hope many of you have had the opportunity to go out to the site, driving by Town Center Parkway as you go by a lot of our new communities. It's certainly, as the planner and the landscape architect, I get very excited when I see the progress and the beauty that we've been able to bring to the city of Westlake. The entranceway is coming close to completion, and I'm pleased to tell you that Crestwinds and Coulter hope to open up within the next month the first active adult community within the city of Westlake. So Pod P1 will ultimately contain a little bit of over 650 dwelling units. So we're here just tonight to move forward with the second plat. We're hopeful on your June or your July agenda to be in front of you with a very significant neighborhood square and community center, which is currently under review by the staff. So this plat that's before you contains a little over 42.36 acres. The land use is R2, so it's in the higher density areas of Westlake. The total density is only 3.77 units to the acre, and there's a total of 298 units with both phases. 152 dwelling units are included within the phase that is before you. So on the screen, just a few areas to kind of focus on. First is Town Center Parkway. So if you'll recall, the entrance here is directly across from the what I would say is the secondary entrance of the hammocks. And this is directly opposite that. So we have Town Center Parkway. The club amenity is located in the center. And then the phase 2 boundaries are highlighted there. Hopefully you can see them on the screen. There's a little bit to the upper right and a little bit to the lower left, where we're adding on and just connecting to the existing network. So this is again that plan. And so within phase 2, we're proposing 50 40-foot lots and 74 50-foot lots and 28 60-foot lots. So there's a pretty decent balance, total of 152 dwelling units. So zooming in just a little bit closer, so you can see this slide shows what is the combination of phase 1 and phase 2. Basically, the area of phase 2 is highlighted in red on the slide that is before you. And you can see the distribution of dwelling units throughout the plan. The club amenity, again, this is just for your information only. This is something that's currently in review with staff. Spectacular 6.66 acre open space, to serve the community. This will be in front of you, I believe, next month. And of course, these residents also have the access to the central facility that Minto built, the existing amenity in parcel TC1, which we're also pleased to say that we're looking forward to moving forward with the second phase of early this summer. So again, this is just kind of a view of what that would look like on a large central lake. Again, what is before you this evening is the plat. The site plan has already been approved by your staff and by the city engineer and city planners. This is a plat which has been reviewed by Seminole Improvement District, as well as the city engineer and city attorney's office, and has been determined to be consistent with state law. And based on that, we're asking you to approve the plat consistent with the requirements of the Florida statutes. And we thank you very much for your time and are more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. Do we have any questions for Mr. Herring?
I see no additional questions or comments listed.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Showing no questions. Let's move forward and with the ordinance, please, Zoe.
Resolution 2020-09, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Crest Wind Palm Beach Phase 2, Odd P, being described as a portion of land described by Mets and Bounds as a portion of Section 6, Township 43 South, Range 41 East, and Sections 1 and 12, Township 43 South, Range 40 East, City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, providing for recordation, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-9.
I'll second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Paul, seconded by Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson. Mayor Roger Manning.
Approve.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Yes.
Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Yes.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Madam Clerk. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
You too, Mr. Herring.
Thank you, Don.
Okay. Now we'll move on with our regular agenda. Community Development Block Grant Programs and Emergency Solutions Grant Program and Home Investment Partnerships.
Pam, you're still on mute.
Thank you, Ken. Sorry, this was an interlocal agreement provided to the city manager by Palm Beach County, requesting that the city participate in the various grant programs that are listed in the agreement. This agreement had come to the city a couple of years ago. At that time, the council decided not to go forward with the agreement. At this point, I would recommend approval for the city going forward with this agreement and participating with the county in these grant programs. There are two corrections to the agreement. One is in paragraph 13 of the agreement. There's language there regarding law enforcement. Those statements are not correct. I've put in a request to the county that we modify that before this document is executed, or provide documentation that that language is already in place with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. So that would be one change, as well as in authorization for approval as to form and sufficiency by the city attorney. With those two changes, we would recommend approval of the agreement.
Pam, I have one other minor correction, that they take the second L off my name.
Sure.
I see no further comments, Mayor.
Okay, I lost video there, so, and I don't know what I lost else, so, I'm still on with everyone?
Yes, you are.
Yep.
Okay, good.
This would be a first reading. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
It's a
Just a
interlocal
resolution.
agreement.
Yep.
It's interlocal agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is approved, this item would not come back before you guys.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the interlocal agreement for community development block grant programs, as well as emergency solutions grant program and home investment partnership.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have a mayor by Vice Mayor Long Robinson,
Yep.
seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Mayor Roger Manning.
Approve.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Yes?
Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Well, I didn't
Yes.
say anything when I should have.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Hello?
Mayor, can you
Okay.
hear us?
Thank you. I got you. I'm not gonna get your video back, I don't think, though.
Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other new business, under new business, item A, emergency ordinance 2020-04, authorizing city manager to make
Mayor?
provisions for electronic. Yes?
Mayor?
Pardon me, we have another resolution.
Okay, sorry.
Resolution 2020-07, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida,
Sorry.
selecting a member of the City Council to serve in the position of Vice Mayor until April 12th, 2021, pursuant to the city's charter provision as set forth in Section 8D.
Thank you. I will ask for someone's nomination, I guess, at this point. And can I do that?
I'd like to nominate Katrina. She's doing a great job. Stick to the seat.
I'd second that nomination.
Thank you, you too.
So we have the nomination. So now, if we have to agree on the nomination at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So I would ask that we have a motion to nominate Katrina Long Robinson for vice mayor.
I make a motion to nominate Katrina Robinson for vice mayor.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilman Paul, seconded by Councilwoman Kara Crump. Mayor Manning.
Approve.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you for doing a great job, Katrina.
I appreciate each of you. We're all working together hard, even our two new people.
We'll put them to the test now.
Okay.
Now I'll go on to new business. Thank you. Emergency Ordinance 2020-04, authorizing the city manager to make provisions for electronic attendance by elected and appointed officials.
This also, Mayor and Council, is an extension of our prior emergency ordinance and adds in the section that we discussed the other day when I sent you the email regarding restaurants being able to have additional outside seating for the next 60 days. And there's some parameters in there that I had the attorney put together to allow that, which will allow the planning director, myself, and the building official to grant the outdoor seating as it comes up to make sure we're all safe, and then they can do what they need to do to get more seating.
Mayor,
Any other
Council, if I
questions?
may make one more comment. In addition to that, the Executive Order 20-112 also extended the prior Executive Order 20-69, allowing electronic meetings that we're having this evening for an additional 60 days. That language has been added as well.
Very good. Thank you. We have any discussion on this? Any further? So the discussion, so if we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt 2020-03.
I'll second.
That'll be 04.
Oh.
Well, you know what? I take that back.
It's emergency ordinance.
It's emergency ordinance 2020-04. It says on the agenda, A item.
Okay.
And then you go to this.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor. Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Mayor Manning?
Approve.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Councilman Paul?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Excuse me, I would like to ask something, please. Hello?
Nelson, okay.
Hi, yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Nilsa Zacharias, the Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Westlake. With regard to this ordinance, I just wanted to point it out with regard to the 25% that is being allowed to use for the restaurants. There is a very important measure of this phase one reopening of the county. So what that means is that in our plaza, we have on the Grove Market Plaza, we have 3 existing restaurants. So each of those restaurants, per this ordinance and per the executive order from the state, they will be able to sit up to 25% of their capacity. Well, thanks to this ordinance that you just passed, staff, the planning, myself, planning, and the city manager, we can review application from each of these restaurants if they would like to set tables outside. We call that outside dining or outside tables, outside seating. So basically, we are trying as a city to help these restaurant owners to increase their capacity. So if one of those restaurants, for example, Gator Shack or Il Pomodoro or Great Wall, they apply to the city to increase their outside seating capacity, we will review it to ensure that it's in compliance with the ADA federal regulations also that is providing safety for their employees and the customers. And also, if there is not, if it is respecting all the fire lanes and fire provisions. So, but this is a good resolution that will help our existing 3 restaurants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to council comments.
Really quickly, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was muted before. Zoe, is it possible to get 2020-04 on the actual screen, or do you not have that slide?
Well, one of the things you notice that in the agenda, the emergency order says 2020-04 in the agenda, and then if you go down to the actual ordinance itself, it says 2020-03.
Okay. I just want to make a quick comment on that and stress the importance of this ordinance. Basically, in the governor's guidelines for 25% phase 1 opening, what a lot of people don't realize is that includes staff. So if a restaurant has a occupancy of 100 people, they're only allowed 25 people inside the dining room. That 25 people actually includes their staff members as well. So giving these restaurants the ability to allow for outside seating and increase their outside capacity is really going to make them able to open and stay in business. Because the 25% thing alone, because it includes their staff members, isn't really going to make a dent, which is important because of social distancing and everything else. So I just want to stress the importance of this actual ordinance and getting this passed to allow additional outside seating.
Yes, I just would like to add also to that most municipalities here in Palm Beach County are looking at very closely how can their restaurants enlarge their capacity, either by using part of the parking area or even closing streets, or obviously putting tables under covered sidewalks. So everybody is being very creative to allow for this to happen. So we are going to be monitoring very closely that these 3 restaurants that we have in the plaza will have that opportunity.
I consider it's a very good idea as long as everything is done safely.
Yes.
As a follow-up, I will swing by the restaurants tomorrow and notify them that we have done this. And one of the parameters is they do need to have the landowners, the plaza owners' permission to go ahead and be on the outside. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll swing by all 3 tomorrow and notify them that they can start getting their plan in place and ready to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Councilman John Paul O'Connor, you have any further comments?
Just very quickly, I'm not sure. I know a handful of us. I contacted Ken. Hold on, let me find this real quick. I contacted Ken. Got some sad news. The very first resident of the hammocks passed away early last week. Mr. Max Sears, he was survived by his wife, Jerry. They were the very first ones to purchase a home in the hammocks. A couple of the residents thought it would be a wonderful sentiment to somehow offer a tribute in his honor, perhaps dedicate some kind of a green space or even a plaque on a park bench, something to honor Max Sears. He was married to Jerry for over 60 years, just a wonderful, wonderful couple. We mourn his loss, and just wanted to give notice that I did get an email back. I've been working on this for a week or so now. I did get an email back from the president of the Hammocks HOA as of this morning. She assured me that they are working on accomplishing something here and getting something done, and I just wanted to bring that to council's attention.
Thanks. Very sorry to hear about that. Wasn't related to COVID, I hope.
I don't believe so, no.
Councilwoman Crump.
I have no comment.
Councilman Paul.
I just, for future discussions, I don't know so if it is possible to have a plan, a layout for Westlake and all the plots, and then seeing it on the computer is not always, all that clear. If we could have some kind of map or something, have a little better understanding of what areas we are talking about, I think that would be helpful.
I can get that for you, Mr. Councilman Paul. Not a problem. We have it laid out in the GIS format that shows you all 27 or 30 plats that have already been done, and also shows you the plan on it. So I can submit that and get it out to all the council members for your reference.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
Vice Mayor?
So I have a couple of things under my name, Council. I'm going to try to be as quickly as I can. I have a few things I want to discuss. In your packet, let's say staff overview. In your packet, I asked a couple of months ago for staff's resumes. Probably about 5-6 months ago, I started talking about an evaluation tool for us to move forward with evaluating staff. We've been in existence now for a little while now, and so we have never done an evaluation on staff. And with that being said, I think it is time for us to move forward with adopting and implementing an evaluation tool for staff of Westlake, just so they know how they are doing. As we are a growing city, we've been ranked the #1 growing city in the state of Florida. And so I think we do a disservice to staff by not evaluating them yearly. So each staff member that we have now, Mr. Castle, Attorney Booker, and Mrs. Burgess, resumes were included in your packet. Not only were those included in your packet, there were examples of a staff evaluation process included in them. I took the liberty of looking at some of them. I'm going to ask that you look at a couple of them. One I thought was extremely comprehensive was from the town of Lake Park. I'd love to engage you just for a few seconds to know if you did look at that. How do you feel about implementing a staff evaluation process and so forth? So I would love for us to just have a brief conversation about that at this time. You're on mute, Mayor.
There we go.
All right.
First of all, I want to say it's extremely important to have staff evaluations. There's no way to gauge if someone's doing their job properly unless there is some type of evaluation process. At this point, you are correct. It's been quite some time now. And I spilled some water on my desk. That's why I'm kind of doing voices.
Gotcha.
So I agree with you. How to execute this process, I think we have some work to do there. The procedure in which to do so, I think that's the mechanics that we need to get together. That's all.
Okay. I know normally, and Mr. Castle, with you being CEO, you can kind of interject here. Normally, in cities in the past, the evaluation is done right before you go over the end of year budget, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It typically, as you're finishing your budget and you're seeing where you accomplished for the past year, while you're setting the goals for your budget for the prior year, so that everybody knows where we're going, and then we can be measured upon those performance standards. Did we make the budget? Did we not? What items were we trying to accomplish and what we didn't, so that we can all be on the same page of where we're driving the city to go in the future.
Sure. Customarily, that is done in June, correct?
Yes, it's typically done in budget. June, July is when the budgets are typically done initially, and then they're finalized. The final budgets are approved in late August, September. You have to work around the school board and everybody else.
So council, is it, could we look at a date of implementing or doing an evaluation in the month of June or July?
Well, at this point, I think we're July. No, I shouldn't say that. We may be able to do it in June.
Okay.
I would put
we're just going to have to put our heads together on that.
Yeah. What I
have a few comments,
go ahead,
if I may. I absolutely think it's insanely important to have some form of a staff evaluation process, and we should absolutely make it a priority. That being said, the world and the city is literally under a state of emergency right now, especially right now. So I can appreciate everything that staff is doing. I would rather see them completely focused on dealing what's in front of them rather than having this like looming evaluation over their head. So if we can push it till July, let them concentrate on getting us out of this crisis that we're currently in right now. And we also have some very important agenda items, forthcoming. That's just my personal opinion. I think it's a great idea. I think we have to do it. We have to implement it. There's no other way to really gauge our success if we don't. But considering everything that's going on in the world right now, perhaps it'd be wise to maybe push it to July rather than June, if that's an option. Just my opinion.
Okay.
I agree. Also, I just want to, just as far as the questions and the content of the evaluation, I am not working, every single day next to Ken, the town manager. So I want to make sure these questions we're evaluating him are appropriate for us to be grading him on, essentially. So
I think, Kara, it's for all staff. So it would be for manager, attorney, everybody. So I do agree with you on that.
Okay.
And there were several in there, Karen, sorry. That's why I said, if you look at Town of Lake Park.
Yeah, I have it in front of me here.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we could build on that. But like I said, I think that would be, I agree with you.
Okay.
What I would suggest to council is, as you look at Lake Park, if you think of other areas that you would like to have discussion on, and as you're setting parameters between now and the next, 4 to 6 weeks kind of a situation, you all jot down your ideas and stuff of where you want to come from, so that together you can set up and make a total plan that you all are comfortable with going forward, so that then based on that, we can set the parameters. Talk about what it is right now on the evaluation for this year, but talk about the parameters of what we're setting for next year's evaluation next May, June, so that we can measure ourselves utilizing the same document a year from now. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
With that, I have a couple more comments. In regards to, we had a very good discussion talking about where we are in regards to our Safer at Home order, and that we have moved into phase 1 here in Palm Beach County. Council, so I would like to engage you in conversation this evening. I know that several municipalities here in Palm Beach County have been having weekly staff meetings to talk about COVID-19 and what is going on in their municipality. Now, I do understand that we do not have a lot going on in in Westlake. However, we do need to be, because we are following the county's guidelines and that we are going into phase 1, we'll eventually be going into phase 2. I think it is important that all of us are able to relate information to constituents that we are serving in Westlake when they call upon us. So I would like to ask Mayor and Council, the city of West Palm, I can use them as an example, Mayor Manning, the city of West Palm has implemented a teleconference call. They do it every week, but we can do it every other week so that constituents are able to call in and ask questions so that they know what is going on. However, I do recommend that council meet once a week, have some type of staff meeting once a week with Mayor Castle so he can inform us of what is going on at those county meetings so that we are aware of what's happening with COVID-19. I must admit, I know we've opened the pool. However, there have been stipulations. I don't have any of that information. And for me to be ignorant and leading in the city is pretty much an embarrassment. So I would like conversation. Do we want to meet so that we know what is going on with the city and the county and the city so that we are leading effectively? Or do we want to, I love to hear from council to see where we are with this.
Well, I'm
not so.
I'm sorry, Maya, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I don't know how we do that in the sunshine. Second, we've been getting updates from the city manager. At least I assume that every council member is getting the updates from the city manager either once or twice a day now. And if you stay up on that, I think that we would be able to answer the questions that are not totally specific to the city. So first, how do we do that in sunshine?
Sure. Well, a staff meeting could be called by our city manager. That's a staff meeting, not where everybody is included. The updates that we are getting is about the county, not per se the city. Those are county numbers we are getting. We're not getting things related to Westlake.
Well, but I don't think there was anything much outside what's going on in the county that affected the city. And unless I missed something, I don't think there was anything that we've done different in the city from the county. So with the updates that we're getting every day, I kind of thought that wasn't enough.
Okay.
I'll comment as well. I've been incredibly impressed by the updates I've received, several times a day, to the point where, I share that information with family and different people as far as, exactly what's going on in the county, exactly what trend we are, what test stations are open, and then I get the updates from the league as well, where a lot of that information overlaps. And then I got to say also that in some of those updates, Ken does specifically say, Westlake still has no cases, and does refer specifically to Westlake, as well as talking about, phase 1 openings, restaurants, so on and so forth. So I haven't had a problem. I mean, I've loved the wealth of information, and I've been able to share that with everyone that I come in contact with in Westlake, and even people outside of Westlake. But I wouldn't be opposed to an extra meeting. I mean, more info is better than less info, but for the record,
no, I mean, if everybody is fine with it, then that's totally fine with me. I'm in the Westlake Wanderer Weekly, so that is fine. I'm pushing out that information, but there have been some things that residents have been asking that I didn't get, I wasn't able to get from our manager. But I'm good with how, if we're good, I'm good.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about the pool specifically, and yeah, there maybe might have need a little more communication between the HOA and the city, and when it comes to this pool. But I think that was about the only issue that came up.
I agree, and I can also understand that pool opening was a fluid situation where they had to, adjust the staff, adjust the directions people walk in, and so on and so forth. It would have been nice to have that the day before that everybody else had it, just so we could, give our input. But I don't know, it's not the end of the world. I think they did a good job in getting the pool open the way they did. And I personally went and enjoyed it. Everybody was social distancing. Everybody was doing what they were supposed to. It wasn't busy. It was fun.
So, Mr. Castle, can I get a copy of what was, I'm sure you rolled out to the HOA, what the county gave to you, and then the HOA in return gave you something in writing. If I could see what that exactly says in regards to are they giving out towels? Did they move the chairs? If I could get a copy of that, that would definitely help.
I will make sure everybody gets a copy of it.
And last thing, for full transparency, Council, I did have a staff meeting with Mr. Castle. So, Ken, I know you still have your manager's report. During that manager's report, can you give Council an update on the 7-Eleven, Christ Fellowship, and the soccer school, what we discussed in that meeting?
Yes, I believe I sent it out in my report today. 7-Eleven 1.0 is waiting for the contractor certification. Actually, the contractor come certify them to get registered and pick up the permits. 2.0 is finally got some language squared away with the improvement district regarding drainage and drainage structures and easements between the improvement district, the landowner, and the corporate lawyers for 7-Eleven. The Christ Fellowship is on hold right now. They're not going anywhere, but they're reevaluating what they're doing in their time schedule. Same with the ISTF is the same thing. They are still in play, but they are reworking because of the COVID issues and some of the issues they're dealing with.
With the school, I know that what did you say? Did you mention about the soccer school? I'm sorry.
Yes, they're on hold right now. They're working on some issues. I expect some movement probably later in the year, probably August, September. I don't expect any movement on that before then. I know they're reworking some items. Spoke to Mr. Shaggy in an email, and he said they're still around, they're still doing, but they're having to reevaluate their timing.
So does that affect the park any? Because I know the park was a part of that plan.
That offer was out there. I don't know the status of that at this present time. I'll check with the attorney for Sid and find out where that offer was from the park.
Thank you. That's all, Council.
Okay, thank you. I have no real further comments other than I want to thank staff for doing a good job through all this, and the council for hanging in there. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to staff reports. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, in your package you have, I got to find the right memo. The memo that I sent to the entire staff council regarding the items that, looking at the budget, looking at our potential shortfalls this year on an impact of COVID. I froze a number of line items at this point in time to see how we're moving through this, to look at the items. The items that I've frozen are not critical items at this juncture for us. I will evaluate them on a continuous basis and move forward from there and make recommendations. One of the discussions that has been evident with all of the managers. I've had multiple meetings with all the city managers in the county, is the long-term impact of what this is going to do, not only to revenue sharing, permitting, growth, those kind of things. Also, they have more issues because they have more on-staff employees that they're looking at. Some cities are looking at cutting as many as 5 to 10% of their workforce. Other cities are going to be utilizing at least 20 to 30% of their workforce will remain working in a remote situation. So these kind of items are looking at how delivery of services, and everybody is looking at how to trim their budgets considerably going forth on the long-term effect of the COVID on businesses and the residents. So I'll be monitoring that and working forward and looking at, as we get ready to start preparing for the budget, be taking all those items into consideration as I put forward the initial budget for you all to start reviewing and start discussions with you in the next 30 to 40 days. That's all I have, unless you have any questions. I do have one other item. Do you have any questions on the revenue issues?
No.
One other item that will be on the next agenda. The city did receive from the National Flood Insurance Program the approval of the new flood map for hammocks. It does not take effect until July, but it's approved. We have to pass another ordinance for NFIP program at our June meeting to keep moving forward. That'll be on the agenda for June as we move forward. Meadows is following shortly. Meadows, Sky Cove, and Crestwinds should be following shortly, since they've been working on the entire area at one time, and but they're actually doing it in phases from the National Flood Insurance Program. And it's a Zone X, which is great. Means you really don't have to have flood insurance if you don't want it, unless your lender requires it for some reason, and if you do want it, relatively inexpensive compared to some of the other zones that you could be in. That's all I have.
Mayor, Council, we've had meetings over this past week to talk about some of the city authority issues that have been outstanding. We will have that at the workshop meeting. I believe that's scheduled for the 20th at this point in time, so the city manager and I can receive direction and move forward with the final drafting of Chapter 5 as we move forward. So we look forward to continuing those conversations as we go forward.
At this point?
Mr. Mayor, I have one other item.
Yes, sir.
As we discussed this morning, the idea of taking that item, originally it was item number 2 on the DO, and discussing that in a June 10th workshop. If the council is available, do you want to set that at this point in time, sir?
Yes, please.
Rex, to council, mayor's looking for a workshop for the development order and the issues surrounding the development order as we go through, and the developer agreement for a June 10th workshop with everybody, if you're all available.
I'm available the 10th to discuss the DO.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I'm available.
Mr. Paul?
Yes, I'm available.
Ms. Crump?
Yes, I should be available. I did have something scheduled, but I don't think it's gonna happen anymore. So if anything changes, I'll let you know. But as of now, yes.
Is a 6 o'clock start time okay for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll have Zoe put it together on the calendar and get it out to everybody for a 6 o'clock June 10th workshop regarding the DO.
Terrific.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I guess that concludes everything except for public comment.
Hi, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alicia Torres. Do you need my address?
Yes, please.
5847 Will.
Ms. Torres, can you please state that again, please, for the record?
Yes, 5847 Whippoorwill Circle.
Thank you.
I have one quick comment and one quick question. The first comment is that I'm a resident of Westlake, obviously, and I do know personally 2 neighbors that have been that have tested positive for COVID-19. So I understand that there's a broader reporting structure that kind of goes by our zip code, but I do have concerns if someone is disseminating information saying that there have been no cases of COVID-19 in Westlake, because there absolutely have been. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And I feel like I have concerns about a false sense of security if we're being told that there are no cases here in Westlake, because there are. So I guess we just know that neighbor-wise, but it would be also nice to know that from the city's leaders. So that's my comment. And then my question is, as far as the tax collector's office goes here in Westlake, is this replacing the Royal Palm Beach tax collector's office, or is this in addition to the Royal Palm Beach tax collector's office? So I guess the question I'm really asking is the Royal Palm Beach tax collector's office going to remain open, or is there a plan for it to be closed in the future? Thank you.
Mr. Castle, could you answer to that question?
As far as I know, this is another facility. I do not know if they're closing any of their other facilities. All I know is it's a new facility. They were trying to rebuild one in another location, and they had some hiccups and some issues, so they decided to build one out here. That's all I know.
Next.
Ken, as far as these positive cases of, cases of COVID-19 being reported for Westlake, I mean, I know that you can only report to us what you get from the county. And I know even just from like GPS, we're still largely classified falsely, but largely classified as Loxahatchee. Do you think that that's possibly what's happening? Is the positive cases, if there are, any in Westlake, that they might be getting classified in the county as Loxahatchee, and then you're getting that information wrong? Because, I mean, it's true. If there are, in fact, cases here in Westlake, I want to know about it.
Of all the documentation that I've been able to access so far from the county, from the health department, et cetera, I have nothing that indicates that we have cases in Westlake. The fact is that if people know people that have them here, they could be misclassified. When they write their address down, they could be writing it down and it be coming up as 33470 and come up as Loxahatchee. They just don't correct it. Therefore, it doesn't get classified correctly to be categorized. But I check the system every day to look for Westlake in the system, and I have not found any cases yet officially in the system. And that's all I can report on, is what I have official information from the county and from the health department.
Right, of course. Okay, thanks.
Additionally, one of the concerns that has been expressed by Dr. Alonso many times is first responders have lists of people who are exposed, so when they're responding, but that cannot be out because of a health safety issue for the individuals that may or may not have the disease. So there's a real problem issue of giving out information for people's safety.
Ken, this is Vice Mayor. I do understand that, and you and I have had extensive emails about me hearing that there were cases in Westlake. However, I do believe that and council, I do understand what you were saying. But it is best to, for us to try to just make sure and double check. Like Councilman O'Connor just said, it is grouped by zip code. So it very well could be possible, because it is grouped by zip code. We have cases in Westlake. That is very, very possible. So I just don't want us to miss the mark. And if we do have cases in Westlake, then there is a need where we need to talk about getting testing in the Western communities and being on those calls, advocating for that, as well as or handing out masks or things of that nature. It's something that we can be forward thinking and doing for the constituents in the city. We don't have a lot of them, so it is very important that we are careful with the ones that we do have.
I do understand. I'll request from Dr. Alonso to see if I can get some more drill down, but I have been advocating on the group calls with the EOC as well as the manager calls that we get some testing out here. I know Wellington is about to start a site. The site that was going to be in Royal Palm Beach fell through. Wellington is about ready to get a site set up next week, I believe it is, or they'll be testing in Wellington. And I have requested that a site be located out here from the county. They're looking at all options, but they're looking at their hot spots first. In their cases where they have 100+ cases. And if you look at the chart on the health department's website, you can see where those particular areas are. Now you have a hot spot out in the Glades area. So those areas are their prime targets first. They are doing the pop-up testing with the fire department is working, as I stated in one of my reports. Fire department is also doing the special needs. So anybody that's registered on the county special needs for hurricane sheltering, et cetera, is being contacted for testing. Also, they're going on the next list of those are they're homebound. They're on the homebound list. The fire department is setting up tests throughout the county to start tackling that list of people as well. So there is movement that's been coming on. I've been putting that in my daily reports as much as I can. There are some things on those calls in the county that cannot be publicly disseminated to anybody else because of the nature of some of the issues and some of the planning that goes on behind the scenes. And I know some of you are involved with some others that are in that planning, but it is a problem because we have to be careful as to what information is out there, that it's the right information, that we don't say things that are incorrect to the general public.
Perhaps, Ken, going back to the issue of Westlake possibly not being classified properly, maybe you can reach out to the health department. You know, when 33470 zip code is entered, is a database drop down where you get to choose the city? Is Westlake even an option? Can we just clarify that so that
I will find out. Yeah.
Okay.
I will chase that down with Dr. Alonso in the morning.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Mayor, we
Ms.
have
Dewey?
a comment from Ms.
Okay.
Dewey with Lewis, Longman, and Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Dewey, you have 3 minutes.
Well, it's been a long meeting, and so I'm not going to take any of your additional time. We'll have plenty of time over the coming weeks to just clarify what was presented to you tonight, but I am available if you have any questions.
Okay. No questions? Okay. Do we have any other comment?
I see no further comments, Mayor.
Okay. Okay. With that, we can adjourn at 8:55. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, everyone.